On the phone, we have a gentleman who I remember managing with the Giants back in the mid to late 80s. He killed my Cubs in that 89 playoffs with the Giants. But also, he was a player back in the day with the Brooklyn Dodgers, the Mets, the Cardinals, the Reds, the Phillies. He was a journeyman, but he just got it done. Roger Craig. How you doing today, Mr. Craig?
Well, I'm doing very good. Yes, I've had a long career and had a lot of few ups and downs, but I managed to stay in there. And I hurt my arm real bad the last game the Brooklyn Dodgers ever pitched in Philadelphia. It was a cold, rainy night, and I never did get over that. I had to learn how to pitch all over again. But I pitched. I don't know how many years, about almost 12 years, and then I was a coach and manager and consultant, so I kind of did it all. Scout.
You were also once upon a time. You were also a basketball player.
Yes, it did. In fact, in high school, I was a lot better basketball player than baseball. I didn't start playing baseball till really that summer. I mean, we got a pitcher on our team that was a lot better than me, and I look back now, and he had major league stuff when he was in high school, 17, 18 years old. A guy named Julius Moore, and he signed with the Yankees, and he got hurt too. But then I played American Legion ball that summer, and that's when the scouts kind of saw me, and they contacted me, and I went to North Carolina State on a basketball scholarship, and I played there as a freshman the first year, and then when baseball season came around, I just had the bug and the itch, and I wasn't doing too good in my studies, and I talked to my dad. I said, I want to sign a professional baseball contract. He said, well, you got a free education. How can you turn that down? I said, well, I want to do it anyway, so he let me sign, and that's where it started.
Did you ever consider going to Duke or North Carolina for college?
Oh, yeah. I was born and raised about 2 miles from the Duke campus and 15 miles from North Carolina, and I had offers to go to Duke as a basketball player. I made All-State, and I was second in scoring. You know, back in those days, we didn't have the great African American players, and I was like 6'4", and but I didn't have good enough studies to go to Duke University. They were pretty, well, they still are a real prominent educational school, and so. But anyway, so I ended up going to North Carolina State.
Because you would have been teammates with, what, Dick Grote at Duke?
When I was in high school, Dick Grote was there, and we played a lot of scrimmages against him. And then it's ironic, Dick and I played together with the Cardinals in 1964, the world champions, and we're still close friends. And, yeah, he was a great basket. He's the one that started that jump shot. I think the jumping up, one-handed jump shot. He was he was just as good a basketball player as he was baseball.
And he was a darn good baseball player.
Yes, he was. He was led the league in hitting, I think, 1 year, and we had enjoyed each other and had a lot of fun playing that 1 year together.
Okay. Now you were a 6'4" shortstop once upon a time too.
Yes.
Normally a shortstop you think of maybe 6 foot. But
yeah. Well, I was just I didn't realize I had that good an arm, and the coach wanted me to play infield because I had pretty good hands and a good arm, and that's the way it started out. And I enjoyed that because I played every day pitching. You don't do that, but I don't think I'd have made it because I was a pretty good hitter in high school and American Legion. When I got to the professional baseball, I did hit a 3-run homer in the ninth inning in my first year in the minor leagues, but I was not a very good hitter. I didn't really work hard as I should have on it.
I see that you were playing down in Cuba when you got called up by the Dodgers. How did that come about?
Well, I was playing with the Montreal Royals, and Cuba was in the league, and Tommy Lasorda and I pitched a doubleheader one night, and he pitched the first game, and what's the name was there? The guy that was the prime minister or whatever he was.
Batista?
Yes. No, the other one. The one that took his place.
Oh, Castro.
Yeah, Castro, because he was really a baseball fan. He was at every game. he still goes. I don't know if he's still alive. But anyway, he pitched a shutout in the first game, and I pitched a shutout in the second game. And that night we went out and had a couple of beers, and the next morning the manager, Greg Malevy, called me and says, come up to my office on the top of my room. I said, okay. I said, oh, God, what happened? So anyway, I go up and he says, sit down. I was looking for things to be bad news. He said, you're pitching Sunday. I said, you already told me that. He said, you're pitching Sunday in Brooklyn. And I was stunned at floor. I could just, God. And I called my wife from Montreal, from Havana, Cuba to Montreal, and she almost hung up on me. She said, what do you do? You know it's going to cost about $20 to call me. I said, I'm going to the big leagues. She said, I don't care. Anyway, Tommy to this day still hates. He thought he should have gone instead of me because he's had a little bit of experience, not much in the major leagues. But that's where it started. And that year before, I had hurt my arm, and during I broke my arm playing basketball, the left arm, right before I went to spring training, and I didn't get healed up until the middle of the year. They sent me the Dodgers sent me to Elmira, New York. Tommy Holmes was the manager. Then they sent me to Pueblo, Colorado. Goldie Holt was the manager. And I was pitching there, and I was throwing really good. I had a no-hitter going until in the fifth inning, and he come walking out to the mound, and I got a no-hitter going. What's going on? He said, I'm taking you out. I said, no. He said, well, look behind you. Here comes another pitcher coming in. So anyway, they sent me back to Newport News, where I played before I went in the Army, and I played there. I really got hot and pitched really good and got in the playoffs. I'll never forget Pepper Martin, a great shortstop, was the manager of Portsmouth, Virginia, and he put in the paper, said this kid should be in the big league soon. And the next year, I pitched in the World Series from Class B ball. That was a pretty good jump.
In those days, that was quite the jump. Nowadays you get pitchers going from Double A to the majors, but back then when you had A, B, C, D.
Exactly ball,
right. Guys usually had to be at Montreal before you'd end up in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Well, I went to the next year. I went to Montreal, and I was there. I was 10-2 and 10-4. I forgot. That's when I got called up. And one of my greatest thrills was the day I walked in that Brooklyn clubhouse, and I looked around. I saw all those superstars, Hall of Famers and all. I said, I don't belong here. And finally, the clubhouse guy come over to him and said, come on, kid, here's your locker. And I went over and I said, the locker's only like 2 foot wide anyway, and about 6 foot tall. But I didn't see a locker. He said, there's your locker. I said, what do you mean? It was a 10-penny nail up there. That was my locker. So I said, I didn't say anything. I said, okay. Anyway, I pitched a 3-hitter complete game victory against Cincinnati, and after the game was over, I had me a locker. He made me earn it.
I read somewhere that you had a private driver take you from the airport to the game by the name of Jackie Robinson. Was that correct?
Well, no, it was after the game was over. Walter Austin, see, I'd come from Cuba, and he called me in his office and said, you're not pitching for 4 more days. Back in those days, we pitched every 4th day. He said, why don't you go to Montreal and get your kid and my wife and come on back. So I said, okay. And so I go in the clubhouse, and I'm asking people about, how I get to the airport. I was kind of a very raw country boy from North Carolina. And they said, well, you go down, take the L train, the subway, and go this and that. And I said, what do you mean go down in the ground? And I couldn't understand that. And finally, Jackie Robinson walked over to me and says, come on, kid, I'll give you a ride. And I was stunned. And you're talking about that guy was one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life. Anyway, the whole way out there, he talked to me about pitching and what I did that day, and I got a chance to have a good future and all this. And he never mentioned one word about what he had went through. And from that day on, 55, I saw a lot of it, what happened. But then I found out later on that he went out of his way to take me to the airport. I never forgot that.
Did you have to pinch yourself on the way to the airport? Say, is this really happening?
Yeah, I didn't say nothing because I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to say nothing wrong. I didn't say anything. I just let him do the talking, and he just talked about the game I pitched and all, and how I could help the ball club and so and this and that. And I wanted to ask him some questions, but I was too scared to.
Now,
but to this day, in fact, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was in L.A. at the Dodger game for some reason, and Rachel Robinson was there, and I got her to sign a Brooklyn Dodger hat for me, and she said, "Don't you sell this thing." I said, "That thing will be in my house as long as I live." And I'm looking at it right now over here in my room. But Jackie was he was so, he just, for all the things he went through, and he went through it with just, without looking back, without being afraid. He wasn't afraid of nothing. In fact, when I read that Branch Rickey told him, said, "Now when I signed you, said you can't fight back. They're gonna call you this and that." And Jackie kind of looked at him kind of funny, but after a while, by the time I got there, Jackie would fight back a little bit. He wouldn't take a lot of that stuff anymore. But he was just a phenomenal man, and God, he'd have been a great president if he'd lived long enough.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Branch Rickey. His brother, Frank Rickey, is the guy that you signed with, yes?
Yeah. God, you got more information on me than I know about.
Well, we try to do a little research every once in a while. So
no, as a guy that followed me after I played at high school, and I played in American Legion, and then after that was over, I played in a mill team. I forgot the name of the place I played in, and that's when the scout, Pat Merrill, I think it's Murrow. And in fact, I would wish I could get a hold of his family and thank him for it. Anyway, he followed me and followed me and followed me, and there were some other clubs. The Boston Braves were interested in me, and in Brooklyn, and he worked. He was kind of a bird dog scout under Branch Rickey, Frank Rickey, his brother Frank Rickey, and actually Frank Rickey, I don't think ever saw me pitch. But Pat Merrill's the guy that scouted me all those games that I pitched in that mill league, and he signed me. I think the one thing that not a lot of people don't know about is I got drafted into the Army after my first 2 years, and I ended up playing on the post team in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And my 3 catchers over 2 years were Frank Pig House. What was the guy used to be a general manager for Boston, the catcher?
Haywood Sullivan.
Haywood Sullivan was the other catcher, and another was Ed Bailey.
From Cincinnati.
Yeah, Cincinnati. Ed Bailey. All 3 of those guys caught me those 2 years, and I really, they gave me the confidence. Said, you can pitch in the big leagues, kid. Just take care of all this, and they made me believe that I could pitch there. And I really pitched well down in those. I think I was 16-1 and 17-2 in 2 years there.
Was Roy Campanella catching you when you came up with the Dodgers?
Yes, he caught me in my first game and a lot of games. Yeah, he said, "You just look at my glove and whatever I call you, throw it." I said, "Okay," and I did. And I didn't really have that good of control, but he helped me on the control a lot, by pitching in and out and stuff like that. But he was a great player, that guy.
Well, what was the transition like going from, you'd been to some places that, I don't even know that they have minor league teams there, Valdosta, Georgia, Elmira, and ending up in Brooklyn, which is like, when I was a kid, I always thought that the World Series was the Dodgers against the Yankees, because it seemed like every year those 2 teams were playing.
Yeah. But my first year, I went to Newport News. I had a really good spring, and they had 25 farm clubs in spring training, and every time you pitched, if you pitched, regardless how you pitch, you check the score. The bulletin board the next day, because you might be on a better team or a lower team if you pitch bad. Anyway, I ended up going from Class D to Class B in spring training. I ended up at Newport News to start out, but I was wild and all. I got sent to Valdosta, Georgia, and that's where I really I pitched. I think I won 14 or 15 games. I think I led the league in wins and strikeouts, base on balls, and hits batsmen and everything. But it's ironic. I got a letter from an old sports writer that was there, and he said the house that I lived in, it was a bunch of us, about 6 or 7 of us that lived in this big old house, and it's still standing there. And he said, it sent me a picture of it, said, this is a house for Roger Craig and all that stuff.
Wow. What was Ebbets Field like for those who never had the chance to actually be in it?
Ebbets Field was, I just signed some autographs today, and one guy asked me what was my favorite stadium. I said, Ebbets Field. I think my record there was like 9 or 10-1. I just happened to pitch good there. And I never thought nothing about being a bandbox or a small ball. I said, this is a major league stadium. This is great, so. But I enjoyed pitching there. But the first game I pitched against Cincinnati, first major league game I ever saw. And I pitched a 3-hit complete game victory. And the next day I'm in the outfield talking to Carl Erskine. We talking about pitching. And some guy fan in the stands hollered, "Hey, Craig, you're a bum. You'll be back to minor leagues in a couple of weeks." And Charles said, "Don't get upset. That means he loves you." But that was quite a day that day. Then that night, no, I was thinking, no, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I won a game in the World Series. And that night, my mother was there and 2 brothers, and we went out to downtown, and my name came across the thing in the Times Square. Roger Craig beat the. So we ended up going to Jack Dempsey's restaurant, and he found out I was there and come over and sat with us the whole time. And what an honor that was, just to be there with him, and because he was from Mississippi, somewhere down in there, Missouri, so I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, that was during the World Series.
Yeah, the Manasseh Mauler or something like that, I think was his nickname.
Well, yeah. The guy I felt bad for on the Dodgers was Duke Schneider. It seemed like he was always the third fiddle. I mean, everybody talked about Mano and Mays, but they always forgot about Duke.
Duke was a great player. He could jump as high as anybody I've ever seen. Because he wasn't that. I mean, he was a big guy. He was probably 6'1" or 6'2", weighed about 200 pounds. But I saw him climb the fence. Took 2 steps in Philadelphia one night in Old Connie Mack Stadium and jumped up over the fence and caught a home ball that would have been a home run. But Duke was a great hitter. He hit, I think the World Series game I won in 1955, if I'm not mistaken, he hit 2 home runs. Seemed like every time I pitched, he did a home run. Yeah.
What was Walter Alston like as a manager?
He was a quiet type. Now that I've seen he was a very quiet manager. But I say one thing about him. He listened to his coaches. We had Cookie Lavagetto and Joe Becker was a pitching coach, and I'm trying to think the rest of it. But anyway, he listened to he used to ask Jackie and Pee Wee, especially Pee Wee. Pee Wee was a great baseball man. He'd have been a great manager, but he didn't want to go through all that stuff. But anyway, Walt was a quiet guy, but he was a very stern. I mean, he wouldn't take no. He'd just go along with everything, and something that was going wrong in the clubhouse, he'd have a meeting, and he'd get in somebody's face real bad, and he challenged a couple of guys and said some things about him right in front of the whole ball club, but nobody ever knew about this, and that he was just such a quiet guy, but he was in the game, and he knew how to manage a ball club, especially when all the great stars he had.
Well,
and then, Jack had been there, and then we had Newcomb and Campanella and Gilliam.
To manage all those egos, it isn't as easy as you'd think.
Right.
You also were able to see a young Sandy Koufax before he became really the Hall of Fame pitcher that he ultimately did become.
Yeah, it's ironic you mentioned. I talked to him 2 days ago. They're bringing the 7 only living 1955 Dodgers, Brooklyn Dodgers, back to May the 16th at Dodger Stadium, and I'm going to go up there. I'm taking my $2, and they're going to introduce and all. They called me. They want my hat size. I guess they're going to put us in uniform, walk out on the field. Be kind of cool.
I would think so.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine that it's 60 years later.
I know.
Because I can remember the 55 series when I was a kid, and so
get back to Sandy. Sandy had signed. He was on the ball club, but he was really wild and just he pitched a lot of. They didn't want to take batting practice off him because he tried to throw the ball easy and he couldn't do it, and he was so wild. One of the guys says, "Don't you throw one in the cage once in a while?" He was that wild. But look what he ended up doing.
Yeah, I mean, how does a pitcher go from being the wild pitcher that he was to just the dominant, probably the greatest left-hander for a short time, certainly.
Yeah, he signed a contract. I guess I don't know what he made, but at that time, if you got over $6,000, I got $6,000. If I got $6,001, I'd have had to stay a year in the major leagues. And no way I could have done that as raw as I was. And the Sandy was the same way, but he got more than that. So, but my wife's just coming in here bringing me some water. I must be talking too much or something.
At least she didn't pour it on you.
Yeah. We're going on our 64 years of marriage. Okay. We went to high school together, and her first name is really Ruth, but everybody called her Ruth Carolyn, but she was named after Babe Ruth. Her brother's name was George Herman.
Really?
How did her parents deal with you playing for the Dodgers when they were Yankee fans?
He learned to like it though, but he never got a chance to see me. I think he saw me pitch in the major leagues, but he never saw me manage. He always told me one day, he said, "You're gonna manage in the big leagues." I said, "You kid, I don't want to manage. I can't manage." Anyway.
And then you got to play.
I got one thing that you guys might can look it up. That I've got 6 World Series rings from 55 Dodgers, 59 LA Dodgers, the Cardinals
64,
then with the Tigers when I was a pitching coach,
84,
and then in 89 I was managing during the earthquake with the Giants. Well, we got beat, but I was the National League champion, and then I got one as a consultant for the when Bob Brindley was a manager at Arizona. So that's 6 World Championship rings from 6 different cities.
That's a pretty good
A lot
trick.
of guys back in the old days with the Yankees, them guys got 10 or 12 of them. But for difference, and people ask me a lot of times, said, "Is that a record?" I said, "I don't know. I don't think it might be, but I don't know."
It's got to be, because again, I don't remember anyone ever being on 6 different World Series teams.
Yeah. Let me make sure that's right. I say 55, 59, 64, 84, and now 89, but we didn't win. We was in it, but then 2001.
Now, if you have Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling, how much advice do you have to give Bob Brenly?
I tell him, put the ball in the locker on every 4th day. You don't have to say nothing to him. But that was fun, kind of working with them. And those guys, they got along good together, but they fed off of each other. One guy pitched one game, and the next day the other guy pitched just as good, and they were just unbelievable. And they both were fierce competitors. Curt Schilling he's always in my ear, talking, asking me questions about this, about pitching, all that. And Randy was kind of he kind of stayed away, but he listened to me, and he'll ask me a question once in a while. Now, when I became a consultant for them, and Bob Brenly said, "How about coming up to, I think it's San Francisco," ironically, and he said he wants to learn how to throw a split thing. I said, "Man, you don't need no split thing and throw the ball 100 miles an hour." He said, "Well, he wants to do it." So anyway, I go down to watch him pitch, and I forgot where they were, and I think they were in Arizona. So I went in the clubhouse before the game's over, and he's in there getting his arm worked on and all this. And he said, I went up, shook hands with him. I said, "I hear you want to throw a split thing." He said, "I'll talk to you after the game." I All right. So after the game's over, he beat one. He called in talking to Brindley. He come to me and said, I want to talk to you now. So listen, I ain't going to be here but a day or two. So if when you have time, we'll do it. But you've got to do it while I'm here. But anyway, it kind of upset me that he didn't want to do it. But I guess a lot of pitchers don't want nobody to bother them the day they pitch, and that's the way he was. Well, I didn't know that. If I had him, I wouldn't have said anything to him. But he was a good guy. But those two guys were lights out. They were like Drysdale and Koufax. Both of them were the same. Like they'd feed off of each other.
What was Casey Stengel like when you went to the Mets?
He always called me Mr. Craig. I don't know, from the first day until the day. Every time I see him, he called me Mr. Craig. And he was a lot of fun. He didn't do a whole lot of managing. Because he had a lot of, actually we were not great players, but we had a lot of guys that had been around. And he just put their names in the lineup and let them play. And I could see why the press loved him, because he was so funny. He could say, he didn't try to be funny, but he was like Yogi.
Yeah.
He says things, and it's just funny. I'll never forget. He was in New York. They had the baseball writers meeting. A banquet before the season opened, and he was going over the lineup. And he was going over the lineup. He was going to Hobie Landers and Roger Craig and Gil Hodges and Charlie Neal, and got around to all the outfielders. He got Richie Ashburn and Frank Thomas. He got to the right field, and he could not think of the guy's name. And he kept talking on and on. He said, he'll be ready when they ring the bell, and that's his name, Gus Bell. That was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. But he was, I remember, we had a first baseman named Throneberry.
Yeah.
And
Marv Throneberry.
Yeah, Marv. We had both of them. We had Fay and him. But
okay.
But a lot of times I used to have a lot of pickoff moves. I had a lot of men on base when I was with the Mets, and I'd throw over there a lot. A lot of times I'd hit him right in the chest with the ball, and he didn't even. He said I couldn't see it. I'd come out of the shirts in the bleachers. I said, ain't nobody sitting in the bleachers. It was empty. But anyway, on Casey's birthday, I think he was 75, if I'm not mistaken. Before the game, they gave him a cake about as tall as he was almost, and so he went after he introduced and got his cake. He'd come back. He said, 4 or 5 of you guys go out there and bring that cake in. And Marv Throneberry jumped up. He said, no, you might drop it. But Casey was, I don't know, he was fun to play for. In spring training one time, we were playing in the hot, like it is now down there in Florida, and he'd go to sleep on a bench. And once in a while, the crack of the bat would wake him up. And one time he said, "What's that guy? Get Blanchard up! Get Blanchard up!" Blanchard wanted him on the ball top. But he told me that at the end of both years, he said, "Now, you've done a great job for me. I pitch on every 4th days." And so at the first part of the year, he said, "Now, I don't want you to throw in between starts." I said, "Well, I like to lose." He said, "No." He said, "I might need you just in case we're ahead. I might bring you in the late innings." And so I did that. And so after the season was over, the first year, he said, "If you don't get what you want, you give me a call." And I did it 2 years in a row, and he got me not much raise, but I got a raise both years.
How satisfying was it to get sent to the Cardinals?
Well, not really, because we had a bunch of good guys, and I liked them, and I never even thought anything about it. But then, Cardinals was a good ball club, and it just so happened we won it that year, and I won a game in the World Series there. But one of the best things about playing for the Cardinals, Bob Uecker was my roommate. And he was just as funny then as he is now. He kept the team loose, boy. But they had a great ball club with Gibson and God. And what was the left-hander of
Sadecki?
Kurt Simmons, Sadecki.
Oh, yeah.
And that reminds me when Sadecki, and God bless him, he just passed away recently.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got in the World Series on a the fourth game, Johnny Keene came up to me and says, when Ray Sadecki goes in the game, I want you to get up and start throwing. I said, why don't you start me? He said, well, he won 20 games and he did this and that. I said, okay. And sure enough, he only got one guy out, and I came in his first inning. Pitched five innings, 4 2/3, I think. And got to win. Kenny Boyd had a grand slam, so I got to win in that game. That was a game that Ron Taylor pitched the last 4 innings. We gave up one hit and 8 2/3 inning relief in the World Series. That's
not too bad.
No. But my time with the Mets, and people, even today I'd make speeches and all, they said, do you feel bad about pitching for the Mets or all this? I said, are you ashamed of it? I said, ashamed of it? I said, not ashamed of it, because I was pitching in the major leagues, and I look back now, it really helped me when I became a pitching coach and a manager, especially I knew what hard times were. Well, I think I got one year I got shut out 11 times, 5 times 1-0 when I completed the game, and we just had to find ways to lose every day and every time I pitched, and I pitched pretty good both years. I had 27 complete games in 2 years.
What was it like pitching? What was it like pitching in the Polo Grounds?
Well, it was some good things and bad things. A lot of fly ball could go about 240 feet and hit that facade out there, and down right and left field. Right field was a little bit closer than left field, and it had if you remember, they had a upper deck came out over the field about, I would say about 10 feet. And the ball, a lot of home runs would just tick that thing, and so it wouldn't go as far as the fence said. But it was, if you knew how to pitch and could get them to hit the ball in the gap or in the outfield, center field was 427, I think, to that. And the clubhouse was all the way. That's another bad thing. Once you get taken out of the game, you're playing there, and you got to walk all the way to the clubhouse. You could do that, or go sit on the bench and then walk. It is when the game starts, and you got to walk along all around the outfield. The Polo Grounds is the only field that I ever saw that had the bullpens on the playing field. They had them out in left center and right center, but it never really interfered with the game much. But they had an old tarp out there in case it rained and football got in there, or something, or got in the dugout, or got in the bullpen. They 2 bases or something like that. But they had the bullpen in the outfield.
Yeah. Now, if a ball made it that far, chances are the runner's going to make it around the bases.
It was probably I would say it's about at least 380 feet, about 385, 390 to left center and right center where they had the bullpens.
How did you get into coaching?
Well, I always said, especially after I hurt my arm and learned how to pitch a little bit. Back in the old days, we had some big name pitching coaches, but they were just there because they were great pitchers. They didn't really know how to teach, and I made a point that I'm going to learn from. In the last couple of years I played, I went around all the great pitchers, Robin Robinson, all those guys, Warren Spahn, and talked to them about pitching and what they go, and that's how I just decided I wanted to be a pitching coach when I got through, and I really enjoyed being a pitching coach. And we had a good year with the Tigers, Detroit Tigers, and Sparky was great. Sparky's a lot like Casey. They both were, the press loved them because they loved to talk baseball and talk and say things that entertained them, and he was really good. But he was great to work for. I really enjoyed being with Sparky.
How'd you become like the guru for the forkball?
Well, no, it's not. See, it's forkball and a split finger. They're very similar, but they're two different pitches. The forkball was like Elroy Face had one, Lenny McDaniel.
Yeah.
Trying to think, but anyway, they went deeper on the ball, and it was just kind of like a change up. And they had the arm motion where the split finger, I had guys could throw it. They wouldn't put their fingers down as far. They could throw it 90 miles an hour and it go straight down. but it was a pitch that to me, and like a lot of people said, you didn't invent that pitch, and I said, I know I didn't do it. I said, Bruce Sutter was the first one that I ever saw throw it. He had the best one that ever was, and he got his from his pitching coach at Chicago. I can't think of his name. You ought to know what was his name, that older guy.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean because Bruce Sutter was struggling in the minors, and Martin, I want to say his name was?
I don't think it was Martin. But he taught Bruce Sutter how to throw it. And Bruce Sutter, and I would say this is about 7, 8 years ago, he and I were at a card show in New York, and I'd read something in a book or something where he wrote that Roger Craig did not invent a split finger. And I just walked up to him very nice and, I'm going to tell you something. I said, I never took credit I never told a writer or anybody that I took credit for teaching the split. I just found a different way to throw it because I came to you one time to see how you threw it, and I could not teach it the way you threw it. He threw it very different. He used his thumb to push up on the ball and that give it that top spin, and it was why it was so good. He said, I know I didn't say that to the guy who wrote the book and all that stuff. He said, I see, but he said, you did real well with it, which he gave him a compliment, but I never did take credit for that. I just learned a different way to throw it. And the way I did it, we had a baseball school here in a real big, good school here in San Diego, and I had kids, 17, 18, they were college and high school that were starting to throw pretty hard, and they didn't know how to throw a changeup. And I said, just tell them, I'll hold them, just take your fingers, split them apart, split them. I say, hold it about half an inch and throw me a fastball. Then I'd go out a little bit more and more and get further down the ball. And the farther you go down the ball, the less speed you can throw it. But I said the key to it was to throw it like a fastball. Don't think about nothing else. Just put your fingers down there and throw a fastball. You can't throw it as hard, and the ball is gonna move. But most of them will drop down. And I used to take the first time I got managed the Giants. I took my whole pitching staff out there, and I showed them. I said, I'm about throwing the split finger. I said, I want one guy that volunteered to just never thrown it before to come out here. And I had I'll never forget, Mark Davis come out there. He had a real good arm. And he come out there, and I showed him how to do it. And he had one that was unbelievable. It was unhittable. But they just picked it up so fast. And some people say it's bad on your arm, but I don't think so. God, the worst pitch for your arm is throwing the curveball. Good God, you put that elbow, and you put the string you put on your elbow and your shoulder.
Yeah.
The guy's name was Fred Martin.
Well, Martin, you're right, Martin. Right, it's right, Fred Martin. Yeah, good. Yeah, he's the one that taught Bruce Sutter how to throw it. And Bruce Sutter had one that's unhittable. But that's all he had. He very seldom threw it. He might get 3-0, he might throw a fastball, but he'd throw it all the time. The hitters knew what was coming, he still couldn't hit it.
Well, what always amazed me is he's throwing these balls that end up in the dirt, and as a spectator, I'm going, what are they swinging at those pitches for?
The thing about it, and the guys that had the good one, and he had the best, it would get almost to the home plate, and the ball would just, the bottom would fall out of it. They swing at it like it's right in the middle of the plate, and like you said, it's in the dirt, and they swing at it. And I've heard a lot of people say, why do they swing at it? And I said, well, they thought it was right down the middle, but the bottom would fall out of it.
A guy you taught to throw, Jack Morris, he wasn't too shabby either.
Pardon me?
Jack Morris, the guy you taught to throw it, wasn't too bad either.
Yeah, he had a good one, and he learned to throw it a little bit late. Jack Morris is one of the greatest pitchers that ever lived. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. He was a big money pitcher and all that. Jack he didn't like to throw it. He'd like a blooper ball type pitch, and he could throw it, he'd telegraph it, and he'd hit it. And I said, Jack, and I kept trying all year to get him to throw the split thing. He'd throw on the sideline, he'd throw a good one. I said, dude, use it in the game. No, I don't have no confidence in it. So finally one day in Baltimore, I said, Jack, throw your split finger a lot today. In fact, I'll call the pitches for you. I call a lot of them for that year. We won everything. And so then finally he learned, he said, God, I didn't believe I could get people out with that pitch. And Jack his was so good, too, that he'd throw half of them in the dirt. But some of the guys still swing at them. But Jack was a real, He's won a lot of big games, boy. Big games. The bigger the game, but he had the capacity. He could beat you 1-0 or 10-8. He kept him leading in the ball game because he's going to find a way to win. And I guess that's one reason he's not in the Hall of Fame, because I think his earned run average is a little bit over 4.
Yeah.
He didn't get elected, did he? Or did he?
No, he didn't.
Nah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, after that 84 season, if I understand correctly, you asked for a raise and didn't get it, and then you said
Where'd
bye
you
to
get all this information? I'll say you do your homework.
Well, you go on the internet, you find out all sorts of interesting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you say bye-bye Tigers?
Yeah, because my wife didn't really like it that much because they really didn't do anything for the women or nothing. We got in the World Series, and they flew on separate planes, and we had a big old one of them big jets, and she was upset about that because she's spoiled. She'd been on other World Series I was in and fly out. Anyway, I'd been up there for 4 years. I really enjoyed it, and I just thought I might take a year or so. I came back and worked with them in the minor leagues that year.
Okay.
But I think they signed me. I heard later on they signed it because they thought you're going to go to some other ball club. And then I finally did when Al Rosen and Bob Lure called me about the Giants.
Yeah, Al Rosen calls you and says, "This is '85, middle of '85, right? Want to know if you wanted to be want to know if you wanted to be a manager."
I said, "Yeah, but you know what I told him? He was with Houston." I said, "No." I said, "Bob Lewis is one of my best friends. We played together and all this." He said, "I'm not going to take his job." He said, "No, I'm going to the Giants." I said, "The Giants?" I said, "Lost 100 games." He said, "Anyway, we talked. I spent 2 days down there, and I remember going in and sitting behind home plate watching the game and talking to the scouts, and then I was all in the papers that Roger Craig's going to be the next manager of the Astros. But anyway, Bob and Al and I hit it off good, and we had more fun together. We just clicked together. He'd come to me every day. We get in a little slump. What do you need? This and that. And he'd have his scouts would come tell him about somebody that might could help us, and he'd ask me, and I said, "Yeah, let's." So I'd tell him what I thought. I didn't agree with him all the time, but he went and got Rick Russell and Don Robinson and a lot. He bought in more relief pitch. He thought I could teach them all relief pitch, the split finger. He bought in Quisenberry, Bedrosian came down and really helped us. Gossage, Steve Carlton. God, I can't think of some more great relief pitchers that were about at the end of the line. He said, "Well, teach them that split finger." I said, "Well, they got to have a little more than a split finger."
Yeah.
But you mentioned Rick Russell. I thought Rick Russell was through when he came back to the Cubs in '84, and he had a revival under you. And same thing with Mike Krukow.
Well, Rick Russell was kind of his own man. He wanted to do everything his way, and I kind of watched him last but long. I said, one day he pitched in about the 4th or 5th inning, and I asked the catcher, I said, "How many breaking balls he's thrown?" He said, "None." So I was thinking to myself, I said, "Damn, if he's getting them out," and he had really a good sinker. And I said, "Well, just left him alone." So sometimes he'd pitch a whole game without throwing a breaking ball. He'd just throw that good hard sinker, and once in a while he'd hold it with the seam, and once in a while he'd get 2 strikes. He'd throw it across seam right up around his chest, and most of the time he'd take it for a 3rd strike. He didn't like to throw to first base, and I had signs at all my catches. Because I could pick up signs, and I would have him throw to first base. And if that base runner gave it away, or I might find the first base coach give something. He didn't like that. He'd just turn around, throw the ball, lob it over there. So one day he's pitching game, he's leading 1-0. They got the guy, and I know the guy's running. I had the sign, so I had him throw over there. And he just turned and lobbed it over there, and the guy ran, and we got him off. He says, "I'll never show you up again." It's just we got the guy out, and we ended up winning the ball game. But Rick was he was a pretty good hitter. He was a good athlete. That guy, big as he was.
Even though he didn't look like he ever was in shape.
No, he didn't. He looked at, I saw him at a, not long ago, 3 or 4 years ago somewhere, and he looked better shape than he's ever been. I said, you want in that kind of shape and you pitch for me.
But yeah, another guy, Mike Krukow, you revived his career.
Yeah, Mike Krukow's, you're talking about a guy that, he's one of my favorites. In fact, him and Brenda were my leaders in the club. You know, everybody always asked you, who'd you appoint for a captain? I said, I'm not going to appoint nobody for a captain. That guy will surface from the pack, and it's very seldom your best player. It's a guy that, just, Brenda was he'd walk in the clubhouse, boy, he'd jump all over the guys, but if he thought they didn't run balls out or something. So those little things like that help the manager. A manager can't go in and scream and holler at everybody all the time, and because, you lose them when you do that. But him and Krukow, boy, they weren't afraid to do it. Mike Krukow, he never wanted to come out of a ball game, and I always told the pitchers, I said, when I walk to the mound, don't give me that ball unless I ask for it. Because some guys would be upset and pissed off, they just take the ball and throw it. And I said, don't ever do that. You might do it one time, then you won't be here no more. But anyway, Mike he would walk, do it to me. Skip, I can get this guy out. I can get him out. And most time I'd leave him in, and most time he'd get him out. But he was a fierce competitor. And he his split finger was more like a changeup, but he pitched on guts and control mostly.
Now, your success as a manager, to me, was sort of the prelude to other pitchers becoming managers, because for a long time, the theory was, we'll get a catcher because the catcher sees the entire game. They're the smart guys out there. How gratifying is it to see guys like Bud Black and other pitchers follow in your footsteps?
Well, it's very gratifying. In fact, I've got a lot of Matt Williams, one of my players, Bob Brindley, Phil Garner, Bobby Melvin, and I feel honored that they're there. That I had a chance to help them along the way a little bit, but I don't know. I never even thought about it. I was the most stunned guy in the world when I was in spring training with the Padres in Yuma, Arizona. And one day we were going out, and one of the general man, not the general man, President Ballard Smith, who was Ray Kroc's son-in-law, saw me. I was going to get a paper. Said, "What time you go to the ballpark?" I said, "I usually go out about 8 o'clock." He said, "Okay, I'll see you out there." I didn't think nothing about it, so I go to the stadium, and Alvin Dark was the manager, and we had a coach's room, and all the coaches were getting dressed, and so he'd come in, he opened his door and called, so I want everybody to come in my office except Roger. I said, "What the hell? What's going on?" I thought I'd done something wrong. And so I heard him say, he said, "I've been relieved of my duties, and Roger's your interim manager," and this and that and all that. That was really stuck, because I never really thought about managing. I never did, but after I started doing it, I really liked it. I like managing a lot. But Alvin Dark was one of the few guys that got fired in spring training.
That's tough to do.
And that day we played a doubleheader with the Giants, and I'm managing the Padres, and we won a doubleheader. I guess Ray Kroc thought I was a genius, and so he flew in his helicopter down from L.A. or somewhere, and they had the press after the game was over. So the first thing he did, he got up and he talked real loud. "Roger's not my interim manager." I said, "Oh shit!" So I'm going back to be a pitcher. Go, "He's my manager." Just won 2 games in one day. He said, "That thought I was a genius or something."
Lucky you won. If you didn't, Ronald McDonald might have been the manager.
Oh yeah. Well,
you should have gotten free McDonald's for life after that.
Yeah. Well, I think he was the one that fired me, because he didn't really know he didn't know nothing about baseball. He brought in Gene Tennis, and who was the other guy? I think Gene Tennis, and I think Raleigh Fingers for the second year I managed, and we had a bad year. Ozzie Smith was there. He got hurt, and just had a bad year. And so, and the first year I managed, we won 84 games. And so now he hires these guys. He said, "How many games do you think you can win next year?" I said, "Well, we're shooting for 90. If we win 90, you never know." He said, "You mean you can't win every game?" And I thought he was kidding. I said, "Mr. Crock, if we lose 62 games, that means we're going to win 100. He didn't ever understand that. And he just didn't like if you better win every game if you're going to manage for him. And it's not possible.
But he's the same guy that let Dave Winfield go and let them trade Ozzie Smith for Gary Templeton.
No, yeah. Well, Dave Winfield, he was a great player. I had him when he was real young, but he had some talent. He got in a slump one time. He come down to the bullpen and work with a pitcher. He said, "I want you to teach me how to pitch. I can't hit no more." But he had a rifle arm. He could have been a good pitcher. He was a great basketball player too.
Yeah. What was it like being on the field for the 1989 World Series when the earthquake hit?
Well, actually, we had just finished batting practice, and we were in the clubhouse. And I don't know if you've ever been in Candlestick Park. I'm sure you have. In fact, they sent me two chairs. They tore it down, and they sent me 2 chairs. I got them sitting in my backyard. But that earthquake, when the earthquake hit, I heard Don Ramos. I'll never forget. He was in the club. I said, "Earthquake, earthquake," and the stuff on my ceiling was coming down. I was sitting in my office. And I just I said, "Everybody run out, get out, and let's go out in the parking lot." And the parking lot was real close there. And we were running out in the parking lot. Some of the guys were in their shorts and not even half dressed. And standing on that asphalt, you could feel it moving under your feet. And then I finally went out on the field, and then Tony Russo and I were talking, and what was the principal leagues? And Fay Vincent come over and said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "You better get everybody out of here," because one of the TV guys said that in one part of the stadium in center field said that the whole bleachers had just sunk about a foot. Whoa. I said, better get them out, and they won't leave until they see us leave. And both teams left without uniforms on, and that got them out of there. But I remember I had a pickup truck and had a lot of my family in there. I'm riding out in my uniform, and some guy come up. Had a bottle of champagne. Says, "Why'd you Craig? My wife and I getting married tonight. You have a bottle? Will you drink a bottle of champagne?" I said, "I'll have a swallow." I took a swallow of it and give it back to him. But the only good thing about that earthquake was that Bay Bridge, and it was a double decker, and at that time 5:30 is rush hour, and most people on that they're going home from work or going somewhere, and but a lot of them was over 60-some thousand people at the ballpark. The ones that didn't get tickets was home getting ready to watch it. So the bridge wasn't very crowded when all that stuff happened. There'd have been a lot more cars crushed in there.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite batter to face when you were pitching that you knew you could get out anytime, any day?
Not many. The only one that I really got out good was Ernie Banks. God bless him. What a credit he was to the game of baseball. And but I just had a thing. He could never figure out what I'm going to throw. One time I threw him 3 straight sliders for ball 3, and then I threw him a fastball right down the middle, another fastball down the middle. He didn't swing. I threw him another one. He didn't swing. He dropped his bat on home plate and looked at me and he said, "You got my head screwed up." But he's one of the few guys I got out. A lot of guys hit me good. Hank Aaron, Eddie Matthews hit me good. Stan Musial hit everybody. Well, they hit everybody good too.
I was going to say, you're talking about guys that hit most pitchers pretty good.
Yeah. But
who do you think the greatest player of all time was? You've seen a lot.
Well, it'd be close. It'd be between Willie Mays and Clemente, and I always put Hank Aaron in that too. Hank Aaron was a great. He could steal a lot of bases, but he didn't steal unless he had to steal. If the game's on the line, he didn't steal just to add another stolen base to it. But Willie McCovey could probably hit a ball as hard as any man I ever saw. I mean, so I'm glad he didn't hit him back through the block. He's a good pull hitter. But
he'd hit him to the second baseman.
Yeah, but there's a lot of great players. George Brett and but with Willie Mays and Hank Aaron, and Clemente, they had all the tools. They were 5 skilled players. They would hit for power and run bases, great arms, good defensive players.
Who had a better arm, Furillo or Clemente? Because they're both pretty good.
Both were. I would think Clemente had the better. Clemente. Well, the one thing is that in Everett's field, the fence was so short. He was like, I think it was 305 or something down the line, and left center was 344. So he wasn't throwing the ball as far as Clemente with that. In Pittsburgh, that was the name of that stadium. I can't even think of it.
Forbes
Field. You know how deep it was there, but he could throw it on the line to the third baseman or to the catcher.
Yeah.
I thought he had. One of the best arms I ever saw was Rocky Colavito.
Yeah.
So you're managing. You have your choice of picking one pitcher to win a big game for you. Do you pick Sandy Koufax, Bob Gibson, or someone else?
Cy Young.
A smart manager.
Well, wow, that's hard to do. You know, Don Drysdale would be running there too. Don Drysdale was the best warrior pitcher I ever saw. I mean, he walked on that mound. It was like it's a war between me and the hitter. And I don't care who you are, I'm going to get you. And especially rookies that come up, just a matter of time before he knocked them on their butt. You know, Don was he was 6'6", a big guy too. But you have to say Koufax, Gibson. I played with both of them. Gibson was a better athlete because he could swing the bat and he could run and fill his position good. But see, Sandy didn't have to worry about that. He didn't have nobody on base.
Well, and Gibson and Drysdale did something that you're a big proponent of, and you don't see very much anymore, is throwing the ball inside.
Oh yeah. I used to tell myself if I had to do all over again, I'd have pitched inside a lot more. Because later on, after I hurt my arm, I was throw a lot of sliders and curveballs low and away. And then guys reach over and hit it. I said, they shouldn't hit that pitch. And the catcher said, you got to pitch them inside. I was afraid I'd hit them and put them on base. I didn't care if I hit them, but I put them on base. In fact, if I did hit somebody, and I didn't mean to, I'd act like I did intentionally.